Good morning. I'm Ravikumar from the L&D department working in AJK College of Arts and Science. Today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic. To begin with, effective public speaking. So one might wonder why I'm jumping to effective public speaking as the very first topic for the day. Well, you have to start with speaking. Speaking is one of the primary part of any language, and effective public speaking is part of a good professional, because many corporate houses, many big companies, as well as the head honchos of big companies is starting to use presentation as the primary medium of presenting their company, to identify and introduce their company, to sell brands, to sell ideas. So effective public speaking has become a sort of a quality, a benchmark while selecting professionals, while selecting candidates for a job. And today we're going to look into what exactly is effective public speaking, why is it important, and how a person, he or she, can develop their effective public speaking skills. Well, first and foremost, you need to understand that public speaking is considered as an art as well as a skill. So what is the difference between this art and skill? Well, there is a need for people who can effectively make public presentation, who can effectively give presentation and speak to others. This has become a norm, a sort of an unwritten rule in corporate houses. Your knowledge and skill in this area can help advance your career to improve your business. Also, if you're good and you really enjoy public speaking, you may even choose speaking as a profession. Well, to begin with some examples, Adolf Hitler, I think you might all remember this name. He's hated by many people around the world, but one good attribute about this person is he rose to the political power purely by making powerful speeches at public areas, at political rallies, things like that. So Adolf Hitler is considered by the public speakers as a good example, not by others. Steve Jobs, the CEO of Apple, the former CEO of Apple, who is still an inspiration to many CEOs and entrepreneurs around the globe, he took his company to the pinnacle of glory by sheer marketing and presentation skills, especially during his product launches. In fact, his videos have gone viral throughout the internet. Today, Steve Jobs' videos are taken as study materials in some of the universities around the world to teach the students the effective application of language, how effectively it can be applied as a public presentation skill. So, let's move on from the example. Let's move on to the real part of the effective public speaking, because whatever may be the story, effective public speaking, as I told you, it is both a skill and an art. Many speakers have brought about great changes by the sheer effect of effective speeches. You too can be, I'll repeat, you too can be one of those few who have left behind a trail of history which will keep them in the memory of generations to come. Things that you do before a presentation. That's exactly what I'm going to discuss today. There are some basic things for any person to become an effective public speaker. So, what are these things? First, you need to try to know about your audience. How to do that? First, let's start with the question number 1. How many people will be present? Well, the presentation, is it going to be a big auditorium kind of a setup, or is it within a small classroom? Is it a small audience or a larger audience? You need to first understand the amount of audience who are going to be present there. And you should also understand the age group, because the young people will always look for some entertainment during the speeches, whereas the old people will look for some informative technical stuff. And if it is going to be journalists, then they might be looking for some in-depth news, in-depth information about the topic that you're going to present. And the educational level of the audience, that is point number 3. Because a broad idea is more than enough for, let's say, to speak to a general audience, but if you're going to speak to some educational people, especially students, you cannot go with a simple topic. You should have some in-depth examples, simple examples, to make the students understand the depth of the topic that you're going to present. and the occupation level of the audience. For example, are you going to speak to businessmen? Are you going to speak to professionals from corporate houses or students? You should know the occupation level, the type of occupation what the audience are into, because that will help you to further proceed or further improvise your presentation when you are into the live presentation. And you should also have a subject knowledge. But before your subject knowledge, you should understand what is the subject knowledge of the audience. Do they know about the topic that I'm going to present, or are they aware of the topic that I'm going to present? You should have a basic understanding about that. And then the time. Whenever we come to the presentation part, the important aspect of any presentation, it's going to be time. How much time do you have? What time the presentation is going to begin, and what time the presentation will be completed. You should be aware of all these things. You should always keep track of the time, but you can't just literally, just keep looking at the watch just like that. That's considered as a bad habit. But you should have some kind of mental understanding of the time frame, because that will help you further with a proper, effective public speaking. And then the most important aspect of public speaking, the dress code. You're going to present to somebody, you should know what kind of a dress you're going to wear. If it is going to be a general marketing presentation, then you can go with a general formal dress, a simple formal dress might do. But if you're going to talk to some business professionals, you should suit up according to that. And if you're going to give a presentation in front of university students, and make sure you have some kind of a tie to make it look more ethical, make it look more professor-like. So the dress code plays an important part in your effective public speaking, or simply public speaking. As much as you try to understand the audience will also in turn try to understand you even before you start your presentation. How is it possible? Well, there are things like non-verbal communication elements. These elements, what are they? Well, to begin with, there is something called as posture. How do you sit? Do you sit straight, or do you lean towards the front, or the way how you walk into the stage? How do you walk? Or do you have a droopy walk? You have a steady walk? So your posture and your movement, it plays an important role. And then your gestures, your hand gestures. For example, if you're going to sit in front of an audience, like say I'm presenting to you in front of a screen, what kind of a gesture am I having? Am I having a closed hand, or do I have an open hand? So these gestures, they again play a role they convey a message to the audience, what kind of a person you are. And then your eye contact. You should always have a good eye contact with the audience. For example, imagine if I'm going to have a big an auditorium, I should have an eye contact with everybody. But if I'm going to talk to any one person, then I should be looking at that person right into the eyes. But again, there is a rule that you can't just simply keep staring at somebody's eyes. That's too bad. Or maybe that's considered too unethical, maybe too unprofessional, or sometimes they might even think that you're trying to act. So maybe once in a while you can have a glance elsewhere, but not frequently. So eye contact again plays another important role for the audience, or maybe for the listener, to understand what kind of a person you are. And the last two things which I discussed earlier, the dress, most importantly the hairdo. What kind of a hairstyle you have? Do you have a formal cut? Do you have long hair? Do you have a funky hair? All these things, they contribute towards the characterization, the profile of the presenter. So these are all the things that one must take into consideration before going for a presentation, an actual presentation. And before I get into the conclusive part of this particular session, I just like to discuss 6 basic rules of effective public speaking. The basic rules. If any person can follow these 6 rules, I'm pretty sure they can be an effective public speaker. Rule number 1. Make the audience the center of your universe. Because understand this, you are not the center of this universe. Your audience are. You are not the focus of the event. Audience are, they are the focus of this event. Understand the fact that every good speaker cares more about the audience than themselves. So focusing fully on the audience lifts a huge burden from your shoulders because it allows you to focus on what's important for the presentation, because you're not going to worry about like what kind of a costume I'm wearing or the things that I'm going to do. No, let the audience worry about it. You just put all the burden on the audience, you just focus on the thing that is on hand right now. That is rule number 1. And rule number 2, try to build a rapport. For example, if it is going to be a classroom presentation, make sure you try to build a rapport. As I said, you have already established rule number 1, the audience is the center of your universe, meaning you can start focusing on the task. Next, the necessary thing to build a rapport is the connect between you and the audience. So how to build this connect? The connect between you and the content, the connect between the audience and the content, it's important. So even before you start your actual presentation, you give kind of a hint, a kind of an idea, maybe a gist, an abstract of the things that are to come. So the audience, they can easily travel with you on the same day. That way, you would have already established the first level of connect between you and the audience. And then this third rule, that is rule number 3, you should understand your purpose of the presentation. For example, if there are too many speakers, that means they will confuse the topic and also the purpose. So the presentation has to be done by one person. That's one reason why many corporate houses, big marketing people, they try to always send one person for doing the presentation, because if there are like more than 2 or 3 people who are going to do some presentation in the same stage or maybe in the same platform, the audience are pretty sure they might get confused easily, or there should be a clear understanding between the speakers, like who's going to do what. So, understanding your purpose of the presentation, that's very important. Then, rule number 4, use your body language. Your body is a powerful communication tool, and I have established that already while talking about the tips for presentation. So your body might act as a non-verbal communicator to the audience. So the audience can understand a lot of things from your body language, your gestures, your eye contact, your facial expressions, things like that. So your body language plays a very crucial role for the audience to understand you better. So non-verbal communication is more powerful than verbal communication. It means your body language can be used effectively to express what you're trying to deliver. Stand, always stand when you do a presentation rather than sit, because a presentation where you stand, that means you have more command over your own body, you can have more control, you're free to move here and there. That means you can express more things than giving a presentation rather sitting. So I'd always suggest that for presentation, you stand and you present, meaning you can convey a lot of things through your body language. Then, rule number 5, it's visual presentation. Not many people are, they are like friendly enough to go with an oral presentation, because if I'm going to speak and speak and speak, it's too boring. Right now I've been into this session for almost 10 minutes. Don't you feel that, okay, hey, this guy is too boring? No. Understand this. Audience, they love visual presentations. So it's always better to have some kind of a PowerPoint presentation, some keynote prepared, and maybe a video, something, so that audience can be diverted from your oral, boring speaking stuff, maybe somewhere in the middle. So there will be again some sort of a connect will happen between the content and the audience. So in order to have a connect between the content and the audience, I would always suggest go with some kind of a visual presentation. Understand this, visual presentation is just a tool, but the tool can be used effectively to have a more powerful presentation. And then rule number 6, always have a question and answer session. Why is it important? Well, question and answer session is often called as the forgotten avenue of audience persuasion. Virtually anyone can give a reasonable quality presentation if they have prepared and practiced enough, but it happens when there are questions, then there are challenges. And if there are challenges, chances are that there might be some pushbacks. So the speaker who can handle those situations with style, with knowledge, wit, and a bit of self-deprecating humor is the person who embodies presentation leadership. Meaning, if you are good in presentation, you should always have the thing for facing the audience. So a good presentation is all about giving, answering or maybe responding to the questions raised by the audience. So if it is going to be a marketing presentation, end of the presentation, the people might have some questions related to the product or maybe to the brand or to the service that you're offering. If it is going to be a classroom presentation, the students will have questions. The students will obviously have questions every time. And if it is going to be some kind of a presentation to working professionals, yes, they might have some questions about some topics for clarification. You should have an answer ready for all those questions. Meaning, you should have enough knowledge of about the topic. You should have enough guts, maybe boldness, I don't know how to put it, but I can simply say you should be ready for everything. Just expect the unexpected. Question and answer sessions always make the presentation an effective one because that should be the concluding part of any presentation. So that's not just a part, I also consider to be a rule. So that is rule number 6. Always expect or always anticipate, always be prepared for a question and answer session. Then let me just talk about one last point before we conclude the session today. Stage fear. What is that? Well, the first 30 seconds are the worst enemy even for the most accomplished speakers. So that is the truth. We'll talk about it. But what is stage fear? Again, coming back to the question. Someone once rightly said, I just want to re-quote somebody. The human body, or not the human body, the human brain is a wonderful organ. It begins functioning the moment you are born and does not stop until you are called upon to deliver a speech. And when I say called upon, not about, called upon to the stage to deliver a speech. The most carefully prepared speeches are never heard because of this mind block called stage fear. In simple English, we can call it as nervousness. So how to fight this so-called stage fear? There are certain things that puts this mind block between us and an effective presentation. What are this? First, my English is bad. I might think, hey, I'm having a bad English. What if the audience start making fun of me? Or my fluency is okay, not bad, but what if I can't connect with the audience? And my grammar is bad. Nobody is good in grammar. Please try to understand that even British schools have nowadays employed grammar part as a separate education because they feel that the Britishers are losing their control over grammar. So grammar, it's a flexible thing, especially when it comes to Indian English. We can do some takeaways, some back and forth can be allowed, but understand this, nobody is good in the advanced level of grammar. If you know the basic grammar, it's well enough to do a good presentation. So how can I do justice to the vast subject? For example, I've been given a presentation on some high-level topic, maybe something, I don't know. I just have 3 minutes. What am I supposed to do? So these are all the things that comes as mind blocks. And some basic silly examples like so many ladies are present and I haven't shaved properly. And so many men are there. What if I haven't worn a silk saree? So these are all the basic psychological, emotional stuff that causes nervousness. And psychological nervousness, like what will my father, mother, or wife, or husband, or maybe an employer or boss, or sitting in the audience, and what will they think of my speech? This is more of a professional psychological mind block, a professional psychological stage fear. And then, lastly, a personal mental stage fear, like I think I'm going to faint. Oh my God, there are more number of audience, I'm totally frightened, I'm scared of them. Or I'm dead. So these are all the kind of thoughts that puts nervousness inside a person's head. We call it as mind block, we call it stage fear. According to me, I call it nervousness. Well, what are all the tips to tackle this? Well, there are some basic tips. First, Ensure that every speech is prepared. Please do not memorize. I repeat, ensure that you prepare, and you prepare, and you prepare. As you walk to the stage, you begin speaking. Try to walk slowly. Relax and consciously take a deep breath. Before you begin, look around the hall, look at the size of the audience. Look at your audience. First, always have an eye contact. You're sure to find some friendly faces here and there. What if your brother is there, maybe your colleague is there, your senior student is there, your junior is there? Try to identify some known faces so that you'll have some friendly faces there, meaning you're already in the comfort zone. Get your friends, always try to get your friends, your spouse, or maybe your siblings, or somebody to observe you critically. When I say observe you critically, that is when you prepare for the presentation standing in front of a mirror, try to give a sample presentation to some sample audience and try and ask them to evaluate you critically. This way you will know the plus and minus in your presentation. You can improve your presentation. And then never, the last tip, never, I repeat, never attempt to memorize your speech, because that's exactly where you will fail. I repeat, never memorize. Try to understand the topic, try to understand your audience, try to understand what you're trying to speak, try to understand the purpose, try to understand, but do not memorize. And then there's one more thing. What's that? The truth. Truth is, you can never really conquer stage fear. After thousands of speeches, accomplished speakers still feel the flutter of butterflies in the stomach. It's not a joke. It's the blunt truth. As soon as they get up to speak, everybody will have butterflies in their stomach. Oh my God, what am I going to do? It's a basic truth. So, the accomplished speaker has to So what is the difference between the accomplished speaker and the novice? Well, the accomplished speaker has learned to conquer his or her own fear. But the beginner, they haven't. That's it. So, face your fear, don't hesitate, follow the 6 rules and understand the tips. You will be an effective public speaker. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for your time. Once again, it's Ravikumar from Learning and Development Division, signing off. Thank you.